ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਐਂਡ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਸੀਜੇ ਸਿੱਧੂ ਸ਼ੋ। ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਐਵਰੀ ਥਰਸਡੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਰੂਬਰੂ ਹੋਈਦਾ ਤੇ ਥੋੜੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਾਈ ਦੀ ਹੈ ਮੋਸਟਲੀ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਸ਼ੀਅਨਸ ਨਾਲ, ਤੇ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਵੱਧ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਫਰਸਟ ਹੈਂਡ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚਾਈ ਜਾ ਸਕੇ। ਆਈ ਸਟਾਰਟ ਮਾਈ ਸ਼ੋ ਵਿਦ ਬ੍ਰੇਕਿੰਗ ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਜਾਂ ਖਾਸ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਜਾਂ ਨਾਟ ਨੈਸੈਸਰਲੀ ਬ੍ਰੇਕਿੰਗ ਨਿਊਜ਼, ਪਰ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਐਂਡ ਆਪਣੀ ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਕੋਲੰਬੀਆ ਐਂਡ ਸਿਟੀ ਆਫ ਸਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਉੱਥੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਕਰੀਦਾ ਆ। ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੀ ਹੁਣ ਰੀਸੈਂਟ ਖਬਰ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਪੋਰਟਾ ਵਿਆੜਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਜਦੋਂ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਗੈਂਗਸਟਰ ਐਲ ਮੈਂਸ਼ੋ ਦਾ ਮਰਡਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ। ਉਹ ਮਰਡਰ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਇੰਟੈਲੀਜੈਂਸ ਤੇ ਮੈਕਸੀਕੋ ਦੀ ਇੰਟੈਲੀਜੈਂਸ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਟਰੈਕ ਡਾਊਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਮਰਡਰ ਹੋਇਆ। ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਲਓ ਇਹ ਕਾਰਟੇਲ ਇੰਨੇ ਆਰਗੇਨਾਈਜ਼ਡ ਐਂਡ ਸਫੈਸਟੀਕੇਟਡ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ। they control all the drug trade, but on top of that they sometimes control the politician. They change their mandate because they help them be elected. ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੈਸ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਚੋਰੀ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਵੇਚਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ। ਸੋ ਇਟਸ ਅ ਬਿਗ ਡਰੱਗ ਕਾਰਟੇਲ। ਸੋ ਉਹਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨਸ ਬਹੁਤ ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਬੜਾ ਕੇਓਸ ਹੋਇਆ ਆ, ਪਰ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਟਿਕਣ ਲੱਗ ਪਿਆ। ਉਹ ਦੇਖਣ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲੂਗਾ ਕਿ ਉਹਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਰੋਲ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕੌਣ ਟੇਕ ਓਵਰ ਕਰਦਾ ਆ। ਤੇ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਡਰੱਗ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅਨਰੈਸਟ ਹੈਗਾ ਇਹ ਕਾਫੀ ਦਿਨ ਇਹ ਚੱਲਣਾ ਆ, ਪਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਦੀ ਆਰਮੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਪੂਰਾ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਸ 'ਤੇ ਕੰਟਰੋਲ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇ। ਪਰ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਦੇਖ ਲਓ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨਸ ਆ ਉਹ ਹਲੇ ਵੀ ਟਰੈਵਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ। ਹਾਲਾਂਕਿ ਇਨੀਸ਼ੀਅਲੀ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਨੋਟੀਫਿਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਸੀਗਾ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੋਰਟਾ ਵਿਆੜਾ ਟਰੈਵਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨਾ, ਫਲਾਈਟਾਂ ਵੀ ਬੰਦ ਹੋ ਗਈਆਂ ਸੀ, ਪਰ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੁਣ ਫਲਾਈਟਾਂ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਖੁੱਲ੍ਹ ਗਈਆਂ ਤੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਹੁਣ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਟਰੈਵਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਸੁਣਨ ਨੂੰ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਕਿਸੇ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ ਡਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਫੀਲ ਕਰਦੇ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਹ ਰਿਜ਼ੋਰਟਸ ਨੋਰਮਲੀ ਸੇਫ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ। ਪਰ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵਰਡ ਆਫ ਕੌਸ਼ਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਤੇ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਨੇ ਵੀ। ਇਹ ਵੀ ਦੇਖਣ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲੂਗਾ ਕਿ ਉਸ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਡਰੱਗ ਟਰੇਡ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਐਕਸਟੋਰਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਦੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਇਹ ਰੋਕਥਾਮ ਪਾਉਣਗੇ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਮਾਰਕ ਕਾਰਨੀ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਫੇਰ ਟਰੈਵਲ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਇਹ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹੈ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਫੈਬਰਵਰੀ 26 ਟੂ ਮਾਰਚ 7 ਟੂ ਇੰਡੀਆ, ਆਸਟ੍ਰੇਲੀਆ ਐਂਡ ਜਾਪਾਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਾਣਾ ਆ। ਸੋ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਕਾਰਨੀ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਟਰੈਵਲ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਇਟ ਡਬਲਡ ਵੈਨ if we took Justin Trudeau's 1 year in term versus Mark Carney's, ਉਹਦਾ ਰੀਜ਼ਨ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੀ ਆ। ਟਰੰਪ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਟੈਰਿਫਸ ਕਰਕੇ we need to find other markets to do business. ਸੋ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਾਰਕ ਕਾਰਨੀ ਹੈ ਯੂਰਪ ਗਏ, ਦੂਜੀਆਂ ਕੰਟਰੀਆਂ, ਚਾਈਨਾ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਆਏ, ਦੂਜੀਆਂ ਕੰਟਰੀਆਂ ਗਏ, ਹੁਣ ਇੰਡੀਆ, ਜਾਪਾਨ ਐਂਡ ਆਸਟ੍ਰੇਲੀਆ 'ਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਾਣਾ। ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ, ਵੈਰੀ ਪੋਜ਼ੀਟਿਵ ਨਿਊਜ਼, because we need to find other trade partners. We need to reduce our dependency on USA, and especially considering Mr. Trump's policies. ਉਹਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ। ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸੁਪਰੀਮ ਕੋਰਟ ਨੇ ਸਟਰਕ ਡਾਊਨ ਦਾ ਟੈਰਿਫ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਲਾਏ ਸੀਗੇ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਐਮਰਜੈਂਸੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ, ਇਹ ਲਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਐਂਡ ਦੈਟ ਵਾਜ਼ ਅ ਵੈਰੀ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਨਿਊਜ਼, ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਉਹਦਾ ਰੀਜ਼ਨ ਇਹ ਸੀਗਾ ਇਹਦੇ ਅਪੁਆਇੰਟਡ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਜੱਜਿਸ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਰਲ ਕੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਅਗੇਂਸਟ ਜਦੋਂ ਡਿਸੀਜ਼ਨ ਬਣਾਇਆ। ਤੇ ਟਰੰਪ ਦਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੀ ਆਦਤ ਹੈਗਾ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ 10% ਲਾ ਦੇਣਾ। ਨਾਓ ਹੀ ਸੈਡ ਹੀ ਫਾਈਂਡ ਅ ਬੈਕ ਵੇ ਔਰ ਅਨਦਰ ਲੂਪ ਹੋਲ ਟੂ ਪੁੱਟ ਅ 15% ਟੈਰਿਫਸ ਵਰਲਡ ਵਾਈਡ। ਸੋ ਟਰੰਪ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਹ ਪੋਲਿਸੀਜ਼ ਹੈ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹ ਹਾਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੰਗਦਾ, ਐਂਡ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਹੁਣ ਦੇਖਣ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲੂਗਾ ਕਿ ਉਸ ਦਾ ਆਪਣੀ ਕੰਟਰੀ 'ਤੇ ਕੀ ਇੰਪੈਕਟ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਆ। ਪਰ ਆਪਣੀ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਹ ਰੌਲਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਾ ਰਹੇ। ਮਿਸਟਰ ਮਾਰਕ ਕਾਰਨੀ ਨਾਟ ਸੇਇੰਗ ਮਚ, ਦੇ ਆਰ ਜਸਟ ਫੋਕਸਿੰਗ ਔਨ ਡੂਇੰਗ ਦ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਵਟ ਇਜ਼ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਫॉर ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਐਂਡ ਫॉर ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨਸ। ਉਹਦੇ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਮੇਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਫੋਕਸ ਹੈਗਾ। ਸੋ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਕੋਲੰਬੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੁਣ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਰੇਸ, BC ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਦੀ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਰੇਸ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਤੇ ਉਸ ਰੇਸ ਇਜ਼ ਵੈਰੀ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੀਪਲ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਡੇਵਿਡ ਈਬੀ ਤੇ NDP ਦੀ ਪਾਲਿਸੀਜ਼ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੈਪੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ, ਐਂਡ ਵੇ ਦੇ ਆਰ ਰਨਿੰਗ ਦ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ, the way the deficit budget is, and recently we'll talk about it. So ਇਹ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਬਾਤਾਂ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਤੇ one of the candidates for BC Conservative Party leadership is Ian Black. He is not a new name. I think most of you know that. I know him for a long time. He was in politics. He was a BC Liberal, served as a minister twice, Minister of Labour of British Columbia in office from 2010 to 2011. Us to pehla Minister of Small Business, Technology and Economic Development from 2009 to 2010, and Minister of Labour and Citizen. So a wide range of experience, and as you know, he represents Port Moody Coquitlam, and then the riding name change Port Moody Westwood 2009 उथों MLA हे चुने गए है. And you know him very well about these portfolios, his involvement in the community, and ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਇਹ 2011 ਤੋਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਐਜ਼ ਏ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਐਂਡ CEO ਆਫ ਗ੍ਰੇਟਰ ਵੈਨਕੂਵਰ ਬੋਰਡ ਆਫ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ ਦੇ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਸਰਵ ਕੀਤਾ ਫਰੋਮ 2011 ਟੂ 2019. ਐਂਡ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਰਾਈਡਿੰਗ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ BC ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਆਫ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਇਨ ਦਾ ਰਾਈਡਿੰਗ ਆਫ ਕੋਕਟਲਮ ਪੋਰਟ ਕੋਕਟਲਮ. ਐਂਡ ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ 2 ਜਨਵਰੀ 2026 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਦੀ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟਸੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਆਫ ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਕੋਲੰਬੀਆ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਲਈ ਆਪਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਥਰੋ ਕੀਤਾ. ਹੀ ਵਾਜ਼ ਬੋਰਨ ਇਨ ਮੈਨੀਟੋਬਾ ਵਿਨੀਪੈਗ ਐਂਡ ਵੈਂਟ ਟੂ ਦ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਆਫ ਮੈਨੀਟੋਬਾ. He was also a designation ICDD and from the Rotman School of Management. Please join me welcoming Ian Black. Welcome, Ian.
Thank you, CJ. So good to see you, and lovely to hello to your viewers, and many blessings to them. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, you're very welcome. And it's been a while. We've seen you over the years and stuff, and now you throw your name back for the leadership race. Tell us a little bit, and our viewers, what is the thought pattern behind, because you were in a politics, you stepped down to serve as a Vancouver Board of Trade.
Yeah.
What inspired you to do it again?
Well, I spent most of my career in the technology industry. I started working for IBM as a salesman when I was a very young man. And after 6 or 7 years with that amazing company, I then began taking over other people's companies as president and CEO in the technology space. And the expertise that I developed while I was doing so was fixing companies, getting into organizations that were quite broken and fixing them. They were almost always losing money, and they were almost always dysfunctional. They had challenges on strategy and working together and figuring out how to bond around some key objectives and then achieve some wonderful things together. So my job was to fix all that and make it happen. So I departed from that to go into politics, as you mentioned, under Gordon Campbell's second term in 2005 and 2009, and I loved the experience. I was glad to get back into business afterwards, and I actually thought I was done with politics. I did not think I was coming back. But I'm desperately concerned about the state of British Columbia, and that is one of the things that motivates me now. When I look at where we are with these massive deficits, cuts to seniors, cuts to healthcare. I mean, in Surrey, particularly, access to healthcare is very, very difficult. You're now seeing costs being added onto our seniors in terms of some of the changes that just came out in this terrible budget. And every dollar that's being spent right now is basically money that's being borrowed and will be paid back by my children and grandchildren and yours and all of your viewers. And then, of course, there's all the challenges around public safety, especially extortion in Surrey right now. It's just unacceptable, and this can't go on. So I'm motivated to get back into politics for that reason, and to take everything I know about fixing companies and making people achieve great things and move on to great things and apply that in the legislature of British Columbia.
So Ian ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੋਲਿਟਿਕਸ 'ਚ ਰਹੇ, ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਵੀ ਰਹੇ, ਫਿਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਗਏ, ਐਂਡ Ian ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਮੇਰੀ ਕੋਈ ਇੰਟੈਂਸ਼ਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਕਮਿੰਗ ਬੈਕ ਇਨ ਦਾ ਪੋਲਿਟਿਕਸ, ਪਰ ਫਿਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਟੇਟ ਆਫ ਆਪਣੇ BC ਦੀ ਇਕੋਨਮੀ ਹੈ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਮੱਦੇ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਉਣਾ ਪੈਣਾ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਜਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਗ੍ਰੈਂਡ ਚਿਲਡਰ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਫਿਊਚਰ ਲਈ ਜਦੋਂ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਆ, ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਜੰਪ ਕਰਨਾ ਪਿਆ. ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਕਾਫੀ ਯੰਗ ਏਜ 'ਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਟੈਕਨੋਲੋਜੀ ਸਾਈਡ ਤੋਂ ਆਪਦੀ ਲਾਈਫ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤੀ IBM ਤੋਂ ਸੇਲਸ ਪਰਸਨ ਦੇ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ. ਫਿਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅਕਿਊਟ ਆਪਣੇ ਨੌਲੇਜ ਹੈਗੀ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕੰਪਨੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਫਿਕਸ ਕਰਨਾ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੂਵ ਕਰਨਾ. ਐਂਡ ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਕੋਲੰਬੀਆ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਕੋਨਮੀ ਹੈ, the way the debt is happening, the way ਆਪਣੇ ਸੀਨੀਅਰਸ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੱਟ ਬੈਕ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨਵੇਂ ਬਜਟ 'ਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੱਟ ਬੈਕ ਲਾਏ ਹੈ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਮੱਦੇ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਗੋਰਡਨ ਕੈਂਪਬਲ ਦੀ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਰਵ ਕੀਤਾ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਬੋਰਡ ਆਫ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ ਤੋਂ ਕੀਤਾ, ਸੋ ਹੈਵ ਅ ਵਾਸਟ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਇਨ ਦਿਸ ਏਰੀਆ. So that's good to know that you come with economic background, the business background. Let's start with saying that most politicians are saying that system is broken.
Yes.
And when they say that, and that's a wide range, either it's a healthcare or education system, seniors health, mental health, we will talk about a little bit.
Yes.
So what is your take on that?
Well, I was when I was elected in 2005 and 2008. I was the youngest one in Gordon Campbell's team. I was the very, very junior, and
How old were you?
I was 36 or 37. I was the youngest, yeah. And I was the youngest MLA.
Kevin
and
started at a very young age.
Yes, he did. But by then, I'm younger than Kevin, right? I was by the time that came along. I think Kevin's 4 or 5 years older than I am. But when I came along, I was the youngest cabinet minister and the youngest MLA, and I learned a lot. And so when I think about where we are today, and I think how it compared to 2001, in 2001, when Gordon Campbell first won, British Columbia was in last place in Canada across every one of the measurements that are tracked by all the economists in Canada. And by 2006, 2 years after, or a year after I was elected, we were actually in first place. We were the best in Canada. So I was part of that team, albeit at the later end, and then we did really well then for basically another 10 years. But this is different. It is not just a case of the massive deficits. It's not just the fact that the debt of the province is almost 3 times what it was when the NDP took office in 2017. In 2017, the debt load of this province was $66 billion, and it took 158 years to get there. It is now, under current projections, it's going to hit 170. That's almost 3 times the debt in 9 years.
Now they say might it hit 189 billion.
It will, because they have no ability to control spending, and they have no idea how to make the economy grow to pay for all the things that they're wanting to spend money on. The NDP has failed miserably in every single measurement that there is out there. So what's different now, though, as you say, is not just the economics. It's not just that people are leaving British Columbia in record numbers like never before. First time in our history when you adjust for immigration. First time our population's gone down, ever, right? Because, including my sons. Like, you asked me why I'm getting back into politics. My 2 boys are 26 and 24. When you and I first met, they were 5 and 3.
I know.
But
make me look old.
That's right, yeah, me too, right? But they're now 26 and 24, and they live in Toronto because there's no jobs for them here. Right? My older boy is a young engineer. My middle boy is, I have 3 children. My middle child, my younger son, is entry-level investment banking. And there used to be jobs like that in British Columbia, and there's not. So I want my boys to come home. And so my motivations are very, very personal. And if we get the economy sorted out, and we get jobs for them here, but it's not just that. In addition to the challenges of 2001, nobody can get a family doctor. Right? We've given up our public spaces, our business corridors, and places where people gather. We've given them up to drug addicts and criminals. Right? We've got extortion in Surrey, which has never been seen in our country before. You were shared with your viewers off the top about El Mencho and the situation in Puerto Vallarta. Right? We're having this situation happen in BC and notably in Surrey. Right? We've got challenges in our education system where parents don't have the same confidence in the education system the way they did before. Right? So, and housing affordability. When you and I were younger, we could work hard for 20 years and buy the same house that our parents did. Now you've got people 35 to 40 with young children, right? Kind of where I was when we met. But they work for 20 years and they can't even get the down payment for a townhouse. Right? Yes. It's different, and they're not, whatever this is, it's not working for them. So when we win government back from the NDP, we not only have to fix the economy, but we need to restore the trust and the confidence that all British Columbians have in their government to work for them properly?
ਸੋ ਇਨ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਡੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੁਣ ਸਟੇਟ ਆਫ ਇਕਨੋਮੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਿਚੁਏਸ਼ਨ ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਕੋਲੰਬੀਆ 'ਚ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕੀ ਖਿਆਲ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਨੀਸ਼ੀਅਲੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਡੈਫੀਸਿਟ ਬਜਟ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹ ਸੀਗਾ 66 ਬਿਲੀਅਨ 2017 'ਚ। ਹੁਣ ਦਿਸ ਈਅਰ ਇਫ ਵੀ ਥਿੰਕ ਅਬਾਊਟ ਇਟ ਵਿਲ ਹਿੱਟ 170 ਬਿਲੀਅਨ to 189 ਬਿਲੀਅਨ ਡਾਲਰ। ਦੈਟਸ ਮੈਸਿਵ ਡੈਟ। ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਰਜ਼ਾ ਆ ਇਟਸ ਅ ਪਬਲਿਕਸ ਮਨੀ, public purse. Who is going to pay? It's talking about either my grandchildren or Ian's grandchildren or your grandchildren. क्योंकि जो कर्जा है वो तो पे करना ही पैना है. And you know, also Ian mentioned that लोगों को family doctor नहीं हैगा, health care जो है, education is suffering and people are moving out. He said his 2 sons ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਉਹ ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ 'ਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਣਾ ਪਿਆ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇੱਥੇ ਜੋਬਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ। ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਪੋਲਿਟਿਕਸ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਮੈਂ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਤਾਂ ਆਉਣ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਮਾਈ ਸਨਸ ਕੈਨ ਕਮ ਬੈਕ ਟੂ ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਕੋਲੰਬੀਆ ਐਂਡ ਫਾਈਂਡ ਸਮ ਪ੍ਰੋਡਕਟਿਵ ਜੌਬ। ਸੋ Ian, well said. And you know, so whenever I talk to the politicians, you know, I know that there is a problems. There is a lot of issues that we are going to discuss today. But when and if you become a premier of British Columbia, how you're going to fix that? Because it's nice to pinpoint this is the problem. It's a massive problem.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a magic formula that come around. I'm glad you mentioned Gordon Campbell's time. Like in 2001, we were in one of the worst, you know, economy.
Last place in Canada.
Last place in 2006 by a prudent running government, and you were part of that, and they become one of the best. How we can go from there back where we were?
Well, I don't think we ever go back, but we have to go forward. In the new reality. So we can't just try to redo everything that happened back then, but we can learn.
We'll learn. And whatever the formula or the practices used to get on a solid footing, those are the trends might be moving forward.
So we'll talk economics. Do you want to talk economics first?
Yes.
Okay. So economics first. Yes. So economics first. Well, we have to unleash the capacity and capability of British Columbia, especially in our natural resources. Right. So we'll talk about that first, and then we'll talk about small business. So in our natural resources, we should be the wealthiest part of the world, with all of our natural gas and oil deposits, as well as forestry and mining. Right? We have got a government right now who's the Department of No. Right? We have proven what can get done when we work together. So I'm the guy, when I was at the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade, we chartered a plane, Air Canada, and we flew to Edmonton, and we filled that plane with 200 business leaders, union leaders, Indigenous leaders, and community leaders, lots of people from Surrey, and we flew to Edmonton to meet with an NDP premier to tell her that we've not gone crazy, and we actually want to get Canada's natural resources to tidewater, create jobs in British Columbia, and stop selling all of our products to America at a 30% discount to world prices. So that's one thing I'm very, very passionate about. I believe in it. I've done it. There's also the issue of mining, where right now it takes 27 years from the first time some prospecting is done to opening a mine in British Columbia.
How many years?
27.
Oh, wow.
Right? Now that it takes a while elsewhere in the world as well, but there's so many things we can do to improve that. There's the permitting process, which government controls, which we can improve. One project, one process with respect to the environmental assessments, both provincially and federally, right? We can get pre-approval on the technical certification on the applications, so that it doesn't take 4 or 5 years. It can maybe take 6 months to 2 years, right? That's real money, because the companies who want to invest, they measure time and money in the same way, right? But here's the other problem we've got. The NDP has made so many mistakes with respect to our First Nations that we now have this thing called DRIPA, a piece of legislation in Victoria that is making everybody question whether they actually own their own house.
And it happened in Richmond.
Absolutely. But I have been all over the province. This competition has been underway for 3 or 4 weeks, and I have been to oh my goodness, probably 15 different locations and cities and towns across the province. And I'm going back, I'm on the road again tomorrow morning. And this is the number one thing that people are talking about. It's not just Richmond. So businesses are pulling away their checkbooks because of the uncertainty and risk that this NDP government has put in place around DRIPA. So that has to be changed as well. Now, do you want me to go to small business, or do you want to translate for a second?
Well, let me, yeah.
Sure, on you go, please.
Finish that.
There's a lot there.
there's a lot of it. I'm glad that it's very important. ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਮੈਂ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਸਾਰੇ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ, ਹਨਾ? ਸੋ ਮੈਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਲਵੇਜ਼ ਇਹ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਵੀ ਚਲੋ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਤਾਂ ਹੈਗੀ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕ੍ਰੀਏਟ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ, NDP ਨੇ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ, ਹੈਵੀ ਡੈਟ ਲੋਡ ਹੈਗਾ, ਪਰ when and if you become a government and you become a premier, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਫਿਕਸ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਕਰਨਾ ਆ? ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਆ, ਮੈਂ ਇਕਨੋਮਿਕਸ ਦੇ ਲੈਸਨ ਤੋਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੈਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਾਂ, ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਯਾਰ ਡੈਫੀਨੇਟਲੀ, ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਦੈਟਸ my topic too, and you know, I was professor of economics before coming to this country.
Yes, indeed.
And so ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇੱਕ ਤਾਂ ਕਪੈਸਿਟੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਕੈਪੇਬਿਲਿਟੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਕਪੈਸਿਟੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਕੋਲ ਰਿਸੋਰਸਿਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਨੈਚੁਰਲ ਰਿਸੋਰਸਿਸ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਆ ਕਿ ਆਪਣੇ ਕੋਲ ਕੋਈ ਘਾਟਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, ਗੈਸ ਆਪਣੇ ਕੋਲ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ, ਮਾਈਨਿੰਗ, ਆਪਣੇ ਨੈਚੁਰਲ ਰਿਸੋਰਸਿਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ, we're a wealthy country when it's come to, or British Columbia when it's come to resources. ਫਿਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਆ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮਾਈਨਿੰਗ ਆ ਉਹ 27 ਸਾਲ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਅਪਰੂਵਲ ਪ੍ਰੋਸੈਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਣਾ ਆ। ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਚਲੋ ਦੂਜੇ ਵੀ ਕੰਟਰੀਆਂ 'ਚ ਦੂਜੇ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਜੁਡੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਉੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਟਾਈਮ ਲੱਗਦਾ, ਪਰ 27 ਸਾਲ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਵੇ ਟੂ ਲੌਂਗ। ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਟਾਈਮ ਲਾਈਨ ਆ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ, ਇਫ ਯੂ ਥਿੰਕ ਅਬਾਊਟ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ, ਦਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਲਾਈਨ, ਟਾਈਮ ਇਜ਼ ਮਨੀ। ਸੋ ਜਦੋਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਜੈਕਟ ਡਿਲੇ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ, ਇਹ ਕਾਸਟ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਇਨਕਰੀਜ਼ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ, ਕੈਰਿੰਗ ਕਾਸਟ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਇਨਕਰੀਜ਼ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਟ੍ਰੀਮ ਲਾਈਨ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਣਾ। So Ian, that's a good start. That we need to streamline these things.
Yes, we need to say yes.
Yes, and yes to the businesses.
Yes,
and how we help them, small businesses, because I remember your guys' time, you know, 3 Ps we used to call public private partnerships.
You bet.
How you're going to help small businesses to make these approval permits faster, easier to start a business.
So here's how I would link those. If we don't have a really strong natural resources sector in our forestry communities, right, mining, oil and gas, if they're not really strong, then we suffer in southern British Columbia. Surrey, Vancouver, the Tri-Cities, New West, Delta, Richmond, many of your viewers are involved in small business. They could be in trucking, right? Well, if we don't have the economy performing in northern British Columbia, then we don't have the people working in southern British Columbia. And trucking's a great example, right? The Port of Vancouver, right, employs over 100,000 people within 5 kilometers of the water, directly and indirectly. And that activity all reflects how well our natural resources sector is doing. So let's talk about how do we make those small businesses here in the lower man more effective. So first of all, we have to take care of the natural resources sector. But if that's done, and we actually, government becomes the department of yes and not the department of no, then we move to our small businesses.
And you mentioned trucking industry.
Absolutely.
Sorry to interrupt you, but
yes,
trucking industry is suffering big time.
Absolutely. So here's what we can do there. First of all, we need to roll back the regulatory burden on our small businesses. I hear that in every, whether you're a restaurant, whether you're a trucking company, whether you're small manufacturing, whether you're processing some of the wood from up north in our forestry community, whether you're a home builder, developer, the layers and layers and layers of red tape that have creeped up in the last 10 years, that's what the NDP does, right? When I was in government, we got rid of 55,000 regulations in the first few years of government. And it's time to do that type of thing again.
I think Kevin was the first.
He was.
Red tape.
He was the Minister of Deregulation.
Deregulation, right. I remember that.
And when I took over as small business minister, I was able to continue on that journey working with small businesses on the Small Business Roundtable, which the NDP has got rid of. This is crazy. The Small Business Roundtable let me, as the minister, travel the province, 2-3 meetings every quarter, and meet directly, just like this,
Yes.
with small business who would say, and here's a great example. They'd say, Minister, you've got a great program for hiring a summer student maybe. It takes 3 hours to complete that form. Why does it take so long? So from that, this is an actual example. I went back, gave instructions in the ministry, and the next day it took half an hour, not 3 hours. That's because small businesses are busy. Any forms they're filling out for government is done after their children are put to bed, after they've paid their taxes and it's late in the night. Government should not be in people's way. So one of the things I have committed to is to rolling back all of our regulations to 10% lower than 2017 levels when the NDP took office. So that's one thing for sure. Okay, pause there.
Yeah. So ਮੈਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ, ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਈਐਨ ਨੂੰ, ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਇਕਨੋਮਿਕ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਚੇਂਜ ਕਰਨਾ ਮੰਗਦੇ ਆ, ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰੋਗੇ? ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਸੀ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਰੈਗੂਲੇਟਰੀ ਬਰਡਨ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਮੈਂ ਮੈਂਸ਼ਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਕੈਵਨ ਫਾਲਕਨ ਜਦੋਂ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਡੀਰੈਗੂਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਸੀ, ਤੇ ਈਐਨ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ 55,000 ਜਿਹੜੇ ਰੈਗੂਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਇਹਨੇ ਕੱਟ ਬੈਕ ਕੀਤੇ ਸੀ, ਐਂਡ ਆਈ ਰਿਮੈਂਬਰ ਦੈਟ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੱਟ ਬੈਕ ਕੀਤੇ ਸੀ। ਸੋ ਫਿਰ ਇਹ ਸਮਾਲ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਈਐਨ ਬਣੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਆਈ ਕੰਟੀਨਿਊ ਔਨ ਦੈਟ ਪਾਥ। ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੰਟੀਨਿਊ ਔਨ ਰੱਖਿਆ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਉੱਥੇ ਹਾਇਰ ਕਰੀਦਾ, ਟੈਂਪਰੇਰੀ ਹਾਇਰ ਕਰਦਾ, 3 ਘੰਟੇ ਲੱਗਦੇ ਸੀ ਐਪਲੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਭਰਨ ਦੇ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਇੰਨਾ ਸਟਰੀਮਲਾਈਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਅੱਧੇ ਘੰਟੇ 'ਚ ਉਹ ਭਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਸੀ। ਸੋ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੀ the wastage of these kind of unnecessary wastage.
Yeah.
And I would bring that, you were a technology guy.
Yes.
And with artificial intelligence.
Absolutely.
And, with the AI, and just correct me because I'm not up to speed how AI works, but I have a superficial idea that the things will be moving way faster than ever before. Yeah. And there is some negatives. We talk about what happened in Tumble Ridge, very sad, heartbreaking story.
Horrible.
And that's where the AI, as the minister, federal minister, is talking to AI guys.
Yeah.
And Chat GPT guys meeting in Ottawa to talk about it. Why didn't they? First, let's start with why didn't they alerted the authorities, because technology better than me.
Well, I think the AI, you bring up AI to talk about both the horrible situation in Tumble Ridge, and I can't put myself in the position of those families and that community. It's horrifying, it's heart-wrenching, and there's no other way to put it. It's a gutting, horrible experience. Yeah. What came to light, what you're referring to, of course, is that came to light this morning that some of the people in ChatGPT had reason to know some of the troubling things that were being done. But that challenge is actually human behavior. It's not the technology. People, like me and you, were made aware of a situation and people didn't act. So that's why they're having these conversations, because the technology equipped them to know something and the people involved apparently didn't act. Now, when you apply that same technology for good, and largely it is, the opportunity is amazing. So look at many of your viewers who might be developers or home builders.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Imagine if we used AI to help speed up a building permit process. Right now, if you're building anything more than a single family dwelling, and many of your viewers will be, it can take up to 5 years to get a building. From the time you put a first application in to get a building permit, it can be 5 years. That is the same period of time in our history where twice we have entered into and won a world war. And yet we can't issue a building permit to build a small apartment complex. So imagine now if we could use AI in the development application process so that your application showed up already meeting all the standards, and you could cut 2 years off of that. And then you could focus on other challenges.
Even maybe certain things
in mining,
it should be instantly.
Absolutely.
Like checks and balances and everything, the hoops they go through, people physically go to the city halls, and takes forever. So ਸਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਬਾਤ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਪਣੇ 5-5 ਸਾਲ ਪਰਮਿਟ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ, and Ian is a business background. He was minister of small business, and he was a chair and CEO of Greater Vancouver Board of Trade. So ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਾਸਟ ਨੌਲੇਜ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ, ਐਂਡ ਪਲੱਸ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਟੈਕਨੋਲੋਜੀ background on top of that. So artificial intelligence ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਟੈਕਨੋਲੋਜੀਕਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੁਣ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਟੰਬਲ ਰਿਜ ਦੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ pretty sad ਉਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੁਣ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਪੁੱਛ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਜੇ ਅਲਰਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਇਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇਟਸ ਨਾਟ ਅ ਟੈਕਨੋਲੋਜੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੀਪਲਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਸੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਮਿਸਟੇਕ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਟੈਕਨੋਲੋਜੀ ਚੱਲੀ ਜਾਣੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਯੂਜ਼ ਕਰਨਾ ਜਾਂ ਮਿਸਯੂਜ਼ ਕਰਨਾ ਆ ਉਹ ਯੂਜ਼ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਲੇ 'ਤੇ ਡਿਪੈਂਡ ਕਰਦਾ ਫਿਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਹ ਪਰਮਿਟ ਪ੍ਰੋਸੈਸ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਸਮੋਲ ਕੰਪਲੈਕਸ ਹੈ ਸਮੋਲ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਹੈ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ small business people and lot of developers hurting now big time.
Absolutely.
I never seen a downturn in the economy and they're sitting on the fence. That's economy is one thing, Ian, and on the other side Trump's everyday different policy and he do by acts and posting online and next day his admin people scramble to get on with that. So people are truly suffering and on top of that if it takes 3-5 years the project you already said time and the money it takes
and that's where I think we have to focus on those things that we can control. You and I cannot control President Trump. Right?
No.
We never know. We never know what he's going to do next, right?
Yeah.
But what we can control is our own business environment, our own business climate. I think of the city as Langford over on Vancouver Island, right?
Yeah.
I was in conversation with the former mayor of Langford, and they had the permitting process down, where for very small modifications, renovations, you would walk into City Hall and leave with your permit the same day.
Oh, that's good.
All right? That's what can be done when you've got a committed administration who understands that the job of government and the job of conservatives is to use the expression, pave the way and then get out of the way. And let the private sector do what it does, follow the rules. We don't want people breaking the rules, right? Follow the rules, but that's how you end up creating employment because if you've got the confidence that you can get permits quickly, that you can get your financing in place, that you've got the confidence that you own your own property, right? Then you're willing to invest. And entrepreneurs, all the men and women in Surrey who run their own businesses, they've got the confidence to take risks, hire people, and then as the economy starts to take off again, everybody makes more money, including their employees. And that's how that, and frankly, the government gets more taxes. If everybody's making more money, more people employed, hopefully lower tax rates, but more people paying them, that's what makes the economy work. We've been there before, and I know how to get us back there again.
Yeah, it's a good point. I'm glad to hear that. ਸੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਟੈਕਨੋਲੋਜੀ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਬਾਵਜੂਦ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇੰਨਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਸੈਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਕਿ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਪੀਪਲ ਮੈਂ ਹੁਣੇ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ ਇਹ ਨਾਲ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਸਫਰ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਦੇ ਆਰ ਸਿਟਿੰਗ ਔਨ ਦਾ ਫੈਂਸ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਡਿਵੈਲਪਮੈਂਟ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਰੁਕੀ ਹੈ ਪੀਪਲ ਆਰ ਡਿਫਾਲਟਿੰਗ ਪੀਪਲ ਆਰ ਸਿਟਿੰਗ ਔਨ ਅ ਬੈਂਕਰਪਸੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਆਪਣੇ ਚੰਗੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਪੀਪਲ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਦੇ ਆਰ ਸਫਰਿੰਗ ਰਾਈਟ ਨਾਓ ਸੋ ਉਹਦਾ ਚੱਕਰ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਦੀਆਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੈ Trump ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ Trump ਜੀ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੁਝ ਕਰਨਾ I like that what you said we can't control what Trump will that's what Ian said is true ਵੀ ਉਹਨੇ ਕੀ ਕਰਨਾ ਉਹਦਾ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ but what we can do as a British Columbians and Canadians ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਲੈਂਗਫੋਰਡ ਦਾ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਫਾਰਮਰ ਮੇਅਰ ਨੂੰ ਉੱਥੇ ਮਿਲੇ ਲੈਂਗਫੋਰਡ ਜੇ ਛੋਟਾ ਮੋਟਾ ਕੰਮ ਹੈ ਜੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਘਰ ਫਿਕਸ ਕਰਨਾ ਆ ਕੋਈ ਛੋਟੀ ਰੈਨੋਵੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ and that's I'm really good to hear that and people who are my listeners including Mayor of Surrey I will be meeting her soon and Langford ਦੇ small town ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਜੇ same day ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ permit ਮਿਲ ਸਕਦਾ ਆ what is stopping in Surrey or Vancouver to do that
or anywhere
and anywhere and Ian having that to add that our show is not specific to Surrey only it's
of course.
Just for your information it's an international show
yes indeed
it's go to India
Melbourne
USA Canada obviously England Australia New Zealand so we have a huge network and for ਆਪਣੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ viewers ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ information ਲਈ ਵੀ we have a international and we have a lot of alliances so but it's important but predominantly
so let's talk about the international then for a sec can we would that be
yes,
okay
yes
so when part of my job when I was the small business technology and economic development minister I owned trade right so this is really important for your international audience we know what to do in British Columbia because and we will do it
that's again I'm glad that we are talking about that Ian because not only that we're doing a trade here. You were chair, and you know very well. You took people to Edmonton to tell at that time. I think it premier was not Lee at that time, NDP premier, and so if you can take businesses there, and we're talking about the international scope of this show. People can listen to you and our policies. They can invest in British Columbia. And that's what the Prime Minister is going to India.
And it's good for us as British Columbia. Here's why. Every Canadian province, as an average, does 80% of its trade with America.
Yes.
Right? What we did when I was in government before and when I was a trade minister, we got our reliance on America down from 80% down to 50%. Still wonderful partners. Right? They're still our oldest friend, our longest trading partner, all those good things.
Relatives,
absolutely.
Friends.
But we also, as British Columbia, we got our trade relationship with America from 80% down to 50%. And how did we do that? By doing more trade with India, with China, with South Korea, and Japan. And what happened in 2008 and 2009, when all of your viewers all over the world, we got hit with that economic downturn that was mainly caused by the Americans and what's called the subprime fiasco.
Subprime, I remember that,
And you had Oshawa, Ontario, that lost 100,000 jobs. The little city of Oshawa, 100,000 jobs. In British Columbia, we felt it, but barely. We had what we call, you're an economist, we had a soft landing. And the reason we did is because we worked hard as a government to get our trade with America down to 50% by trading with other countries in the world. And when I'm the leader of the BC Conservative Party and then Premier British Columbia, we'll do that again.
So ਸਾਡੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ, ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਇਹ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਹੈਗੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਆਪਣੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ EN ਦੀ ਪਕੜ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ, he have a good grip on how the business should be run with the technology and with the good grasp of how the economy should be run. And ਇਹ ਬੜੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਸੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਸੀਗੇ ਗੋਰਡਨ ਕੈਂਬਲ ਦੇ ਟਾਈਮਸ, ਉਦੋਂ 80% ਆਪਣੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ ਹੈਗਾ ਡਿਪੈਂਡੈਂਟ ਸੀਗਾ USA ਤੇ। ਇਹਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਟਾਈਮ 'ਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ 50% ਉਹਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਆਂਦਾ ਸੀ ਡਿਪੈਂਡੈਂਸੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ। ਉਹਦਾ ਰੀਜ਼ਨ ਇਹ ਸੀਗਾ ਵੀ ਸਟਾਰਟ ਡੂਇੰਗ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ ਵਿਦ ਇੰਡੀਆ, ਚਾਈਨਾ, Japan and some other countries. And so now it's fitting the time we are now and what Prime Minister is doing, like taking the provincial barriers down.
Starting to.
Lots to be done. They're taking a little bit too long, but it should be faster. That will be very helpful. I think it will, I seen some billions of dollars will be, between the provinces. Like we're talking about the free trade with USA and Mexico.
Yes.
We don't even have a free trade between the states. What is your take on that?
Oh my goodness. We could talk for hours on this one point. Okay. So many of your viewers, especially the viewers across Canada and even in America who are involved in the trucking business. If you take a truck from Victoria, British Columbia and you drive it to St. John's, Newfoundland on the other side of our country, you are offside with the law 21 times. Wow. We can't decide between the provinces on the definition of a truck.
Wow.
So when people say, what does this mean to have these interprovincial trade barriers? That's one example, right? So when you talk about the cost on small businesses, whether they employ 10 people, 50 people, 200 people, I mean, in America, a small business is any business under 500 employees. In Canada, we use the definition of 100. In BC, we use 50 employees or less. But in BC, that's 6 out of 10 jobs, more than any other province, by the way, right? So the small businesses and that regulatory burden, and that trade between provinces. So if you had a small trucking company that had to go across from let's say, Langley to Winnipeg, Manitoba, they could be offside with the law in their truck. So what do they have to do? They have to stop and change things as they go through. How are they supposed to manage that? Those are burdens that we can get rid of. We can talk about alcohol crossing borders, but it's not just
like our BC
wine, our great BC
wine
wine
going to Alberta.
But here's another one. It has to do with our tradespeople and recognizing skills, nurses, in some cases doctors, lawyers, right? We have different expectations of registering in each province, and we're a small country. We're 10% the size of America.
Yes.
And 85% of us live within a half-hour drive of the border, right?
Yeah.
But we're the second largest country in the world. We can't afford to have all these arbitrary rules because other countries in the world are looking at us and going, it's too expensive to do business in Canada. There's too many rules.
So ਸਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਫੇਰ ਇਸ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਤੇ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ. I'm glad that I'm talking to the person who knows what he's talking about. And basically is you know ਇਹਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੁਣ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਟਰੱਕਿੰਗ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਤਾਂ ਸਫ਼ਰ ਕਰੀ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ, ਫਿਰ ਰੈਗੂਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਜਦੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਪਲੇਸ ਤੋਂ ਦੂਜੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ ਜਾਣਾ ਤਾਂ ਰੈਗੂਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਚੇਂਜਸ. ਸੋ ਬਿਗੇਸਟ ਚੈਲੰਜ ਇਜ਼ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਰੈਗੂਲੇਟਰੀ ਰਜੀਮਸ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਰਿਸਟ੍ਰਿਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੈਗੀ ਇੱਕ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ ਤੋਂ ਦੂਜੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ, ਫੋਰਗੇਟ ਅਬਾਊਟ ਗੋਇੰਗ ਥਰੂ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ ਐਂਡ ਸਟੱਫ, ਜੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਬੈਰੀਅਰ ਹਟਾਏ ਜਾਣ ਤਾਂ ਬਿਲੀਅਨਸ ਡਾਲਰਸ ਦਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੀ ਫਾਇਦਾ ਹੋ ਜਾਣਾ ਆ. ਐਂਡ ਫਿਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨਰਸਿਸ ਡਾਕਟਰਸ ਜਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਹੈ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ, ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਇਜ਼ ਅ ਡਾਕਟਰ, ਨਰਸ ਇਜ਼ ਅ ਨਰਸ, ਯੂ ਨੋ, ਡਜ਼ਨਟ ਮੈਟਰ ਦੇ ਵਰਕ ਇਨ BC or Ontario or Alberta.
It should be,
yeah,
but it should be, but we have got, I mean, there's an old joke, and it's not funny, but it's an old joke about if you know if you have a heart attack, don't dial 911, call an Uber, call a taxi. Because we have the best qualified people, the men and women in our taxis and in our Ubers right now, some of them, they're engineers, architects, doctors, because we're not recognizing legitimate credentials when we desperately need doctors and nurses and better engineers. You know, we need a better supply of engineers. We need these, and we're getting in our own way. Again, it's regulation, regulation, regulation.
You know, bringing that, you bring another topic that very close to my heart, because, you know, I remember talking to Prime Minister Paul Martin. This process started at that time. Can you imagine? About credentials?
Yeah.
And every time I talk to a politician, that need to be done, the credentials.
Yeah.
And like you said, and it's not even funny, you're very right, that Uber driver ਹੈਗਾ, ਜੇ ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਚੱਕ ਲਏ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਮੇਬੀ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਹੋਵੇ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹਦੇ ਕ੍ਰੈਡੈਂਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਅਪਰੂਵ ਹੋਏ, ਇੰਡੀਆ ਤੋਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਏ ਆ, ਕੈਰੇਬੀਅਨ ਤੋਂ ਜਿੱਥੋਂ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਏ, ਉਹ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਬਚਾ ਲੂਗਾ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤੱਕ ਜੇ ਐਂਬੂਲੈਂਸ ਪਹੁੰਚਣ ਚ, ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਦ ਵੇਟ ਟਾਈਮ ਫॉर ਐਂਬੂਲੈਂਸ ਐਂਡ ਇਨ ਦ ਹਸਪੀਟਲ ਜਸਟ crazy.
Well, and I had a gentleman took me to the lovely man who was from Iran. He took me to the airport 8 months ago. Nice guy, early 60s, not an old guy, right? And very kind. His English was excellent. And in the port, and very relaxed. And on the way to the airport, he tells me he's a pediatric surgeon.
Oh my God!
He performs surgery on little kids. And I said, why aren't you practicing? Did you retire? He says, no, I'm not allowed to practice here. Both my children, he says, are doctors who finished in Canada, and they're both working. But he can't. He says, I'd love to work. I'd love to work.
ਦੇਖਿਆ ਇਹ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੈ, ਬੜੀ ਸੈਡ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ, ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਕਿ he was from Iran.
He's from Iran. Yeah.
ਇਰਾਨੀਅਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੀਗਾ 60 ਸਾਲ ਦਾ ਬੰਦਾ, ਇਹਨੂੰ ਟੈਕਸੀ ਦੀ ਰਾਈਡ ਦਿੱਤੀ EN ਨੂੰ, ਤੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਪੀਡੀਆਟ੍ਰੀਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਸੀਗਾ, ਤੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਉਹ ਟੈਕਸੀ ਚਲਾਈ ਜਾਂਦਾ, ਤੇ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਉਹੀ ਕ੍ਰੈਡੈਂਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਰੌਲਾ ਹੈਗਾ. And that's, you know, not only that, Ian. I talked to Dr. Gulzar Cheema, comes on my show.
Dr. Cheema, sure.
He's a medical doctor. You
yes,
know
he
him.
is. Yeah.
He was with you guys one time.
He was. Yeah, before my time, but yeah.
Yeah. He was a mental health minister. He's a very good friend of mine. He brought this credential issues. We, you know, bring it to the NDP government. Jagru Broad, we bring that front of them that it can be, you know, the Canadian-born young people go to, because we don't have enough seats, either they go to India, Caribbean, USA, England, Ireland, they go study. It costs parents arm and length, but look at that. That's okay if they can afford it. When they come back, they're waiting forever to get their credentials.
Yeah, get a residency.
Get residency.
And that's bad enough. You know, the worst part is, what if they don't come back?
That's right.
What if they stay in America or stay in Europe or stay in India or any other part of Asia?
And it's happening.
Of course it is. So when people say, why do we have struggles finding doctors, this is one. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but this is a key one as well. But it's part of a problem that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And when you are an elected person, when things are really bad, it's when you've got the support of the population to make the changes necessary to actually improve the situation. But you've just described one of the many areas that we need to work on.
Yeah, so very well said that. And you know, there's ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਹੋਈ ਸੀਗੀ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆਪਣਾ ਟੈਲੈਂਟ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਹੀ ਬੱਚੇ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅਗਲੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਆ, I know few of them, ਇਹ ਆਪਦੀ ਮੈਡੀਕਲ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਉੱਥੋਂ USA ਤੋਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਆ, ਮੋਸਟਲੀ USA ਜਿਹਦਾ ਪੈਸਾ ਜਾਣਾ ਬਣਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਕਈ ਵਾਰ ਤਾਂ ਬੱਚੇ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ. That's what Ian said. And in other countries. ਸੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਸੀ ਦੇ ਇਨਫ ਸਪੇਸਿਸ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਵੇਟ ਟਾਈਮਸ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਉਹ ਹਾਰ ਕੇ ਫਿਰ ਜਿੱਥੋਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਉਸ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਚਲ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਸੋ ਵੀ ਲੂਜ਼ ਅ ਟੈਲੈਂਟ lot of that way and I seen few of your things that you mentioned during this period while you're running for that the mental health issue briefly that Riverview Hospital and Health and Addiction Center we talk about with a number of politicians see now Tumbler Ridge go back that happened Lapu festival happened there mental health issue both places that
horrible situations
if we can't pinpoint both had a history both have a police record if we can't pinpoint and have a proper facility to take care of them how we can address that problem
your question's bang on and I would even broaden it further because it actually comes back to small businesses being able to operate because if we have untreated mental health and addiction issues on the street it also means we've got crime on the street which means that small businesses can't open their store shops with the comfort that they're not going to be at risk themselves or their customers are afraid of coming into the stores like we've lost main streets across the province every town has a main street and they've all been shutting down because of untreated mental health and addictions and the criminal element that preys on them. So one of the things I announced that once I become the leader of the BC Conservative Party and then become Premier of British Columbia, we will make the largest investment in mental health and drug addiction recovery in Canadian history. And my plan is to redevelop the Riverview lands. So for the benefits of, especially of your international audience, Riverview is a very special place with a 100-year history of treating the mentally ill. And starting in 1972, we began closing it over several governments over 40 odd years. And it had 5,000 patients at one point. And it went down to near, now there are a couple of new facilities they built because Riverview is 244 acres. It's a big piece of property. Most of which right now is empty. It's got old heritage buildings that have to be knocked down. They're full of asbestos. We can't just reopen it. It's not, they wouldn't pass the inspection to be a barn for our animals. But it's a marvelously large facility and it is a community called Coquitlam, which has been supportive of living amongst those with mental health challenges for 100 years or more. And so my plan is to redevelop that into a world-class center of research, of treatment, and take care of the full, comprehensive, full spectrum of and mental health, also brain injuries, which have very similar challenges with mental health and addiction issues, and to get people well. But this means we have to be willing to take people off the street who are not capable of taking care of themselves. And that will be challenging in the courts, but I'm willing to take on that challenge and go right to the Supreme Court of Canada if we need to.
So, ਸਾਡੀ mental health ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਈ ਸੀਗੀ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ Riverview Hospital ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਟੰਬਰ ਰਿਜ ਵਾਲਾ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਵੀ mental health ਦਾ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਸੀਗਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਲਾਪੂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਫਿਲੀਪੀਨੋ ਫੈਸਟੀਵਲ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮੁੰਡਾ ਉਹ ਵੀ mental health ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ mental health ਦੇ ਫਿਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਲੀਗਲੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕੁਝ ਕਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦੇ ਸੋ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਫੈਸਿਲਿਟੀ ਹੈ ਈਐਨ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹਦਾ ਇਹ ਰੋਲ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਰ ਬਣ ਗਿਆ ਲੀਡਰ ਬਣ ਗਿਆ ਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਰ ਬਣ ਗਿਆ ਇਹ ਉਸ ਫੈਸਿਲਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਫੇਰ ਰੀਡਿਵੈਲਪ ਕਰਨਗੇ So Ian, we have, wow man, our goes very fast. We have like 3-4 minutes left. And one of your another plans is to restore BC's main street. Main streets. And for my viewers, can you explain when you say that? What do you mean by main streets?
Thank you for asking that. And you're right, the hour goes by. We've known each other for so long, right? Restoring your main street is a central theme of our campaign, and it involves policing, it involves what we talked about Riverview, mental health and drug addiction, it involves getting the regulations of small businesses down, right? And so it's all these things combined, but it also involves housing affordability and getting rid of the taxes that are involved in new houses and speeding up the permitting. So we can talk about policing for a minute and perhaps the extortion situation in Surrey, because restoring the main streets in Surrey or across the lower mainland, because as you point out, your audience is much broader.
Yes.
You cannot have a vibrant main street where families are shopping on a Saturday afternoon, where shopkeepers are proud of what they're selling and they're competitive and people, it's a gathering place with restaurants and vibrant activity. You can't have that if there's criminals.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So we have a provincial police force that is the same size today as it was 10 years ago. We have 1 million more people living in British Columbia. Yes. So when we talk about stepping up to the challenges of extortion, that's happening across, the lower mainland, but a lot of it in Surrey at the moment. That is one of the key things that needs to be done. We need to equip our police with better equipment. We've talked about, and I've talked about getting high definition cameras at more of these critical intersections, places where the business corridors exist, and also where people gather to socialize. Because using that technology and being able to alert our police with some civilian oversight, let's be clear,
yes.
We have to have civilian oversight, to make sure that they can quickly identify those people who would cause us harm, and when they do commit crimes, we can identify them faster. And if they are not residents of Canada, then they must go, because we do not want those things brought to our country. It is not who we are. But I also think we can learn from Quebec, where they did really clever programs when they're trying to crack down on the mafia in Quebec. They had programs for small business involving the police, where the police actually, they went undercover. They posed as small business owners so that they could actually see the people coming in and catch them when they were doing extortion. And they had anonymous telephone tip lines to make sure that small businesses weren't afraid for their safety. They could reach out, report situations, and give the police something to work on. Those are simple things, but if you start adding them up and we learn from the jurisdictions who put the effort in, we can accelerate our ability to solve this problem quicker. So that is a big part of getting and restoring your main street, but it's all tied together. Public health, public safety, taxation, regulation. British Columbians are amazing people. They will do well if we help them and pave the way for them to do so, and that's what we'll do once I'm Premier of the province.
ਸੋ ਮੈਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੇਨ ਸਟਰੀਟ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਉਹਦਾ ਕੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੈ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਪੁਲਿਸਿੰਗ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ, ਐਕਸਟੋਰਸ਼ਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ, ਇਹਨੂੰ ਰੋਕਣ ਲਈ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਕਵਿਪਮੈਂਟ ਤੇ ਹਥਿਆਰ ਦੇਣੇ ਪੈਣੇ ਆ, ਕੈਮਰਾਜ਼ ਲਾਉਣੇ ਪੈਣੇ ਆ, ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਤੇ ਪਕੜ ਸਕਣ। ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਜੁਡੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਯੂਜ਼ ਕੀਤੇ ਸੀ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੁਬੈਕ ਦਾ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਦਿੱਤਾ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਯੂਜ਼ ਕਰਕੇ। ਤੇ ਮੇਨ ਸਟਰੀਟ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇਕੱਲੀ ਇਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ, ਐਕਸਟੋਰਸ਼ਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਪੀਪਲ ਸੇਫ ਹੋਣ, ਰੈਗੂਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਘਟੇ, ਤੇ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਲੋਕੀ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਕਰਨ ਐਂਡ ਦੇ ਫੀਲ ਸੇਫ, ਤੇ ਉਹ ਕਰਨਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ। Well, thank you, Ian, for coming on my show.
Thanks for having me.
Your final comments to our viewers.
Well, we're facing an important challenge in the BC Conservative Party, right? In order for us to beat the NDP in the next election, we need a leader who can do that. And in our view, that next leader must have 3 things that are very, very important and on which we should not compromise. We need a leader who has a track record of having led something. As my friend CJ and I've talked about today, I have been CEO of 6 or 7 different companies, and I know how to lead and get people motivated around some common ideas and achieve great things together. Secondly, we need a leader with an understanding of public policy, of how government works, especially economic public policy. Because if we don't fix the disastrous economic situation that the NDP have created in British Columbia, the rest of it doesn't matter. And third, we need a leader who has sat at the Treasury Board table of this province to actually build the budget, and who has actually sat in the cabinet table as a cabinet minister to understand how government works, so we can get a premier who can get to work quickly and doesn't need to spend 2 years learning the job. I am the only one in this contest who has all 3 of those things. It's why we're going to be successful and why we will get British Columbia back on track.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
ਸੋ ਸਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ ਈਨ ਬਲੈਕ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ BC ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੀ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਲਈ ਰਨ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ। ਕਾਫੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਗਹਿਰਾਈ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਟੱਚ ਅਪਾਉਨ ਕੀਤੇ। 3 ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਉੱਭਰ ਕੇ ਆਈਆਂ, ਇਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਜਿਹਨੇ ਲੀਡਰ ਬਣਨਾ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ 3 ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਹੋਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀਆਂ। ਪਹਿਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਉਹਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਟਰੈਕ ਰੈਕਡ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ। ਸੋ ਈਐਨ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ 6-7 ਕੰਪਨੀਆਂ ਦੇ CEO ਰਹੇ ਆ, ਪਲੱਸ ਇਹ ਸਮਾਲ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਗ੍ਰੇਟਰ ਵੈਨਕੂਵਰ ਬੋਰਡ ਆਫ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ ਦੇ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ CEO ਰਹੇ ਆ। ਸੋ ਦੈਟਸ ਅ ਟਰੈਕ ਰੈਕਡ। ਦੂਜਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਅੰਡਰਸਟੈਂਡਿੰਗ ਆਫ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਪਾਲਿਸੀ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗ੍ਰਿਪ ਹੋਣੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ। ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਪਾਲਿਸੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਇੰਪਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਕਰਨਾ, ਯੂ ਟੂ ਅੰਡਰਸਟੈਂਡ ਦਾ ਪਾਲਿਸੀਜ਼ ਟੂ ਇੰਪਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਦਾ ਪਾਲਿਸੀਜ਼। ਐਂਡ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਹੀ NDP ਕੋਲ ਉਹ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਗਾ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਮਝ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ। ਐਂਡ ਦਾ ਥਰਡ ਥਿੰਗ ਇਨ ਦਾ ਲੀਡਰ ਸ਼ੁੱਡ ਬੀ ਟ੍ਰੈਜਰੀ ਬੋਰਡ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਟੇਬਲ ਤੇ ਹੋਣਾ ਵੀ ਮਨੀ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਯੂਜ਼ ਕਰਨਾ ਆ ਤੇ ਟੇਬਲ ਤੇ ਬਹਿ ਕੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਕਰਨਾ ਆ, ਨਾ ਕਿ ਖੁੱਲ੍ਹੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਛੁੱਟੀ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੋਵੇ ਤੇ ਪੈਸੇ ਸਪੈਂਡ ਕਰੀ ਜਾਵੇ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਬਾਤਾਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ। ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਦੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਚੱਲਦੀ ਰਹੂਗੀ। ਆਪਣੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਕਰੋ, ਫੀਡਬੈਕ ਦਿਆ ਕਰੋ। ਹੈਵ ਅ ਵੰਡਰਫੁਲ ਹੈਪੀ ਹੈਲਥੀ ਵੀਕਐਂਡ। ਧੰਨਵਾਦ, ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਐਂਡ ਰੱਬ ਰੱਖ।